Guys, North Koreans have now entered the battle space. Not only that, they entered where I said they would. So for those of you who've been watching my channel, I gave the two options. I said the two options in this North Koreans entering this conflict in Ukraine would be either they're going to enter in the Kursk region, or they're going to be they're going to be kept together as a brigade when the Russians do this big push. They've gone for the former option. Now, the reason they've gone for this option in the Kursk region is command and control. So they've gone with command control. Remember, these North Korean troops have never been tested. I was watching a video the other day, and there's Kim Jong-un, I think his name is, Kim Jong-un. And he's standing there, and there's all these guys, and they're doing like this circus show in front of them. And they're literally, I mean, there's a guy, he's running, he's smashing these concrete blocks on his head. And then two guys hold a concrete block, and another guy just runs through it with his head. And then he's going, yeah, yeah. And guys, that's all great. It's entertaining. It's funny. Doesn't help you in combat. It really doesn't. You know, and it's kind of like the analogy that you can stand there and do a million kick-ups. Doesn't mean you're any good at football. You know, there's all these circus tricks that people can do. Unless you're tested in combat, it doesn't matter. And a lot of combat is working together as a team, being able to work under the ranking structure, and not only working under a ranking structure, it's from senior commanders being able to trust their junior commanders. And that only comes with experience. That only comes with good training, and you get a trust relationship. And that's how it works. These guys have never been tested. Nobody knows what their combat skills are like. But guess what? We're going to find out pretty soon. So I will share this article with you, and then we'll talk about what it means. Where are we? So this is from Politico. This is one of the more, they're more of a measured. They talk about things a lot better, and they're not as biased as other news articles, and they don't use like ridiculously inflammatory words that just really winds me up. Putin's North Koreans now in the combat zone, Kiev says. First military units from DPRK left training grounds in eastern Russia and were spotted in the Kursk region on Wednesday, Ukraine's military intelligence said. So let's go down to the important bit, which is down here. Soldiers sent by Pyongyang are equipped with ammunition, bedding. I'm just skipping these bits to give you guys what are the interesting bits. I will put all these links in the description so you guys can read them yourselves. Soldiers sent by North Korea are equipped with ammunition, bedding, winter clothes, which is telling, and shoes. I'm sure they mean boots there, and I'm sure by ammunition, I'm sure they mean weapons as well as hygiene products. Of course, you need clean teeth. The Kremlin has high hopes for the North Korean component in the war against Ukraine and the global confrontation with the West. Look at the language, guys. Global confrontation with the West. Hur said. So now, they're not talking about the war, they're no longer talking about limited special military operation or limited military incursion or special military operation. They're literally talking about global confrontation with the West. I think they sent officers because their officers would understand what was going on first and then send the contingent, because how to manage them, how to command them. I'm talking about language. I think these are serious difficulties, Zelensky told reporters in Kiev on Monday. So, like I said all along, guys, the language barrier here is going to be absolutely huge. If you've ever tried to work with a foreign army, even within NATO, when you've got similar kit and equipment, you've got similar tactics, you've got a similar rank structure, if there's a language barrier there, it is impossible. You can imagine being in a combat situation where you're trying to shout orders to someone, or or some sort of commanding order, I guess, and they just don't understand it. It becomes very difficult. I've been in that situation where I'm just shouting at people, and they're looking at me thinking, what is he saying? And I'm shouting things, and then I'm looking at him and thinking, you've no idea what I'm saying. So it becomes an absolute drama. That's why you've got to keep these contingents together. You've got to keep them unified. Well, if you keep them unified, you only really need one interpreter, and that would just work with their commanding officer, and then all the information would be disseminated down. Now, imagine this, guys. Can you imagine the chaos on this battlefield that we're gonna see? North Koreans entering the battlefield, South Koreans entering the battlefield, Ukrainians fighting Russians. So you've got North Koreans who I would suspect have similar weapon systems, and speak a similar language as South Koreans. You've got Russians and Ukrainians who both speak Russian. They both have similar weapon systems and they both employ similar tactics. Can you imagine now the likelihood of a blue on blue where friendly forces are attacking each other? It's just absolutely insane. I mean, you could get a situation where South Koreans end up fighting Ukrainians because they don't know whether they're Ukrainians or Russians, and somebody's shooting at them. So the whole battle space needs very careful management right now. And I mean, I'll be fair. I mean, it needs it from both sides. The Russians, they need to manage this battle space really carefully, or they're going to have blue on blue situations where South Koreans, they're unsure whether the troops in front of them are Ukrainian or whether they are Russian. Again, massive deception operations could happen. You could walk in, if you manage to get behind the Korean lines and walked up to them in a Russian uniform with a Russian flag, you could probably infiltrate those lines pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty comprehensively. This sort of stuff does happen in warfare. There's a chance to have, meaningful gains early on. And the first time somebody does this, it will be the most successful. After that, they will change their tactics. They will have stronger security at the back. But the battle space at the moment is about to go wild, and people are still saying, no, this is not a world war. It'll blow over. Remember what I said when 1st of October? I said, guys, look, in a couple of weeks, maybe a month, the focus will shift from this battle space, the Israeli battle space. It will shift back to the Ukrainian battle space. And guess what? North Korean troops entering Ukraine, looking like South Korean troops are going to be entering Ukraine. Guess what? The news cycle has changed tact, and it looks like very soon we're going to be all looking into Ukraine again. So there's an article here from, I will share this one with you actually, guys, because they're talking now about the new Axis. If you've been following this channel, I've been talking about this for like months again. I've been talking as North Korea, Iran and China support Russia's war, is a new Axis emerging. Do you think this was their plan all along? Shock horror. So, there's just more rhetoric coming out now about this, about these alliances being made, about, the militaries that are building up. Right now, the West still have the military advantage. Militarily, they do have the advantage. I've said all along, these next conflicts, they're not going to be fought. They are going to be fought militarily, but they're going to be fought non-conventionally. We've seen the governments in overseas countries. Nobody can compete with the United States Air Force. So why would you bother? Why would you bother trying to develop aircraft or missile defense systems that are going to get overwhelmed? It makes no sense. You might, instead of putting your money into things that are going to get destroyed, you're going to put your money into something else. You're going to put your money into asymmetric warfare, into non-conventional naval warfare, into black budgets where you ideologically subvert another country. All these things have been happening, I could argue, since 1962. Anyway, guys, another article out from CNBC. Russia says it has no intention of abandoning Iran as it faces Israel's wrath. Remember, I think Iran will strike the Karg Island on the, Israel will strike the Karg Island on the south coast of Iran. That will cripple Iran's oil production. And overnight, you would pretty much see a closing of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, guys, really early on last year, when the 7th of October attack happened, I came out on our social media and I said, guys, they're going to close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the reason I said that and the reason I straight away went there is because in, I think it was 2003, before the invasion of Iraq, the British military sent all their kit and equipment via sea into Kuwait. Now they went through the Strait of Hormuz. Now I was on that. I understand. We was told about the Strait of Hormuz and the significance of it and the importance. So anytime anything happens there, I've got not first-hand experience of the Strait of Hormuz because I've never worked there or anything, but I understand its significance in that region because you've got Kuwait, you've got Iraq, you've got Saudi Arabia, you've got not Saudi Arabia. You have got Saudi Arabia in that region, but in the 1980s, Saudi Arabia built an oil pipeline west to east, I guess, to get their oil out because they was worried about the Iraq-Iran war. So you've got all those countries, those oil-producing countries, and they get their oil out through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, that is going to affect China. That is who it's going to affect. Now, if you understand that the United States and Israel are allied, I don't think there's any any controversy there. If you understand they're allied, they will make their decisions together. Okay, who's the biggest, threat to America at the moment? Well, we've just seen it. We've just seen the article from, I'll read it again, as North Korea, Iran, and China support Russia's war. So, you've got the big elephant in the room there, which is China. Now, if Iran strike Karg Island on, like I said, on the south coast of off the south coast of Iran, that's going to close the Strait of Hormuz. That is going to affect Iran. It's also going to put global oil prices absolutely through the roof. Now, I don't think this is going to affect the United States as much because the United States are a net exporter of, they're a net exporter of oil. So it wouldn't really affect them as much as it affects everybody else. It's not going to affect Saudi Arabia that much because they can get their oil out through their pipeline. Obviously, that pipeline will be, it will be vulnerable then to sabotage, to attack, to drone attack, to all sorts of wild stuff happening. But, on the face of it, that's how that, that situation would pan out. But guys, the jux of this video, North Korean troops have now entered the battle space, as I said they would, in one of those locations in the Kursk region. They're going to be there because, they're not trusted, they're not tested, there's a language barrier, so they want to have them in a dynamic where they can control everything. You see, if something goes wrong in the Kursk region, the Ukrainians that are in the Kursk region, they're kind of isolated anyway. So it is the best option. Now, the second option that I said would be to have them as a unit, as a brigade, when the Russians are doing this big push. Now, the problem with that, if you keep them as a unit, as a brigade, when the Russians are doing the big push, if they fail at that time, then they're going to leave a gap in that Russian big push, and it's just going to be a nightmare for the Russians to try and plug it, and that could actually be an advantage to the Ukrainians. So what they've decided to do, like I think the US Marines in Fallujah, the Russians have decided to blood them in Kursk, see how they react, see how they are in combat against the Ukrainian forces that are there, and then they'll make a tactical decision where to use the North Koreans next. Guys, I've heard, I've not heard anything official yet, but I've heard through my chain, my sources, that South Koreans are going to be entering this battle space very soon on the Ukrainian side. Absolutely wild. At what point do we say that this is a world war? Guys, I'm going to Mac to Grid. I'll get you guys another video later.